Now, today's stage is short, only 129.5 kilometres through the Sierra Nevada National Park, but it's not one of those Vuelta stages that's essentially a sprint towards a single mountain. It features two first-category climbs on the way to the final one. The Alto de Avellanas is first, 16 kilometres of climbing up over 1,600 metres. Then the Alto del Perche, 8.5 to just under 1,500, and that forms part of what's really the longer climb to Sierra Nevada, with the Alto Hoya de la Mora adding 19.3 kilometres to take the riders up to the high point of this year's Vuelta at 2,510 metres.
Chris, it sounded from your interview yesterday as though you calculated a little bit on the last climb yesterday. Today the handbrake comes off completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, today I think it's all stops out for the final. It's a very short, very intense stage, and I think everyone's going to give it everything they've got. So it could be very, very selective once we hit that final.
And just finally, Chris, you've done this so many times now, gone into stages like this. Do you still get nervous?
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's it's good to be nervous. It's good to be nervous, keeps you on your toes a bit, and I think. As I said today, we just got to expect everything. Don't want to be seeing a repeat of Formigal last year.
Adam, you lost a little bit of time yesterday. Was that strategic in any way looking ahead to today's stage?
A little bit. I've been losing big chunks of time for the past couple of days. I think I'm about an hour down on GC already. And yeah, I had one bad day when I lost 9 minutes. I can't remember what stage it was now, stage 9, 8. And yeah, since then we've just been losing time on purpose, trying to save energy for big days like today.
Esteban, you've just been given an Australian passport. You've got members of the team staff wearing Colombian football kits. What's going on?
I think I'm Australian, you know. So yesterday, because I attacked super early, Steve told me I need to take your passport, and I gave you the passport when you win one stage. Jerry's really good guy and give me one Australian passport so I can live here when I want.
Today we're going up above 2,000 metres. You're going to be in your element. Do you think you have a big advantage when we go to those altitudes?
Well, normally on the paper, yes. So will be good. Also, it's one climb similar to Colombia. You see some videos or wherever. It's big route, not super steep. The wind will be super important. And yeah, normally up for 2,000 meters for the Colombian guys is much better. But we will see. We had like 14 stages at the legs, so that will be a big difference. Yeah, we will see what happened today. Will be super explosive, interest day, and I think the gaps today will be bigger than yesterday.
What about these short, sharp stages, Esteban? Only 120-something kilometers. Do you like them?
No. I'm suffering all day. It's like one long time trial I really don't like, because normally in one long stage, you hear at the beginning, and after you start in rhythm, you know, but in one short stage you hear the legs all day for 3 hours, so I don't like.
Now, today may be tough, but unlike some of the mountain stages on the Vuelta, the intermediate sprint at least is benignly placed before any of the climbing begins. Picturesquely placed too in Granada, giving the race helicopters the excuse for some extended hovering over the Alhambra. No surprise then to see the green jersey of Matteo Trentin get in the day's early break and take the 4 points at the intermediate sprint to extend his lead over Chris Froome, in the hope that Froome won't take any at the finish. As they did on stage 12, Trek Segafredo put Edward Theuns in the break, although much tougher terrain today for him to be much help to Alberto Contador later on in the stage. On the first climb of the day, the break broke up and Sander Arme of Lotto Soudal led over the summit on his own. Trek were active in the main field behind, though. Peter Stettner attacked off the front of the red jersey group, and that was the sign for Adam Yates, Romain Bardet and Steven Kruijswijk to go too. Stettner eventually fell back. Yates, Bardet and Kruijswijk kept going. Behind them, Astana were driving a rapidly thinning red jersey group. On the early slopes of the next climb, Yates, Bardet and Kruijswijk caught and passed Arme, and they have an advantage of just about a minute as we join commentary.
Well, we expected it, and it's materialised. A long, long way from the finishing line. Over 27 kilometres out. They've signalled it all day. Trek Segafredo, fancy this. Alberto Contador, for the umpteenth time on this edition of the Vuelta, is attacking. And is that Miguel Angel Lopez who's gone with him from Astana? So, arguably the strongest climber in the field, and two riders who are in relatively lowly positions in the general classification for their ability, are posing a problem. No immediate reaction from the bunch, but that's an interesting move. I don't think we expected it maybe this far out, David.
Well, sort of did, but at the same time you would expect it normally. But Sierra Nevada is such a challenging climb for a lone rider, and even for a small group, because it is such big roads, and it's much more conducive to a team just setting a steady standard, a steady tempo, which is what we'll see Sky now have to do. They'll have to hold this, and they can't go too steady though with two riders like Miguel Angel Lopez and Alberto Contador, who are only 25-30 seconds apart on GC, but at over 3 minutes behind Chris Froome. Still, that's another sort of thing you want them to. You can't relax when you've got two riders of that caliber, because no one's going to help now. It's and nobody can help against those guys. So it's lucky for the rest of the race that Chris Froome has such strong riders. I mean, look how small that group is already. And yet Chris Froome still has 4 riders left there.
As we go back to the front of the race, where Simon Yates and Romain Bardet look like they have dispensed with Steven Kruijswijk. Can't see him, so there's Sander Armé from Lotto Soudal, who was caught and passed on the very, very early slopes of this double-headed climb to the finish line. And it looks like Kruijswijk as well has dropped off that little group at the front. So, stepping stones for Alberto Contador and Miguel Angel Lopez, but I don't think they'll make terribly much use out of Sander Armé here.
It's an all-or-nothing move, and they had to perhaps play a little bit, that they are over 3 minutes back on GC on Chris Froome, that they'll be given a little bit more leeway here to look at just glancing behind, seeing what's going on behind, if they're opening up the gap, because it is a long way to go, and going this early did mean that very few riders would have the courage to go with them. Adam Yates now dropped Bardet, or has Bardet dropped Adam Yates? We don't quite know.
The race.
Yeah, there he is. There's Bardet's there, been dropped, so that's Adam Yates is now moving ahead. He'll now know who's coming up, Alberto Contador and Miguel Angel Lopez, and even for a climb with Adam Yates after he's been off the front a bit, he's going to want to make sure that he gets as far up this climb as possible before they catch him, because they're going to be coming up fast.
Just look at those time gaps now. 1:09 back to the red jersey from Adam Yates, 48 seconds back to this pair, which means they've got about 20 seconds. David de la Cruz has not looked totally comfortable so far on this stage, has been worryingly close to the back, and he's just got a couple of bike lengths to close to the wheel of Louis Meintjes, I should say. Simon Yates as well on the back of that little group.
So that 4 riders still around Chris Froome, so there's no other team with that representation up there, and we know they're very good riders, and they'll have a very good. Chris Froome will be controlling them to exactly what he wants. He'll be quite happy with these 2 riders just being pegged, slowly extending their lead. They're not a big threat to him, and at some point other riders might feel threatened and have to put teammates up there, or have to go and contribute to the Team Sky. Team Sky don't need to take the full responsibility of this at the moment, hence why we see De La Cruz making it back onto that group. They are just throttling very slowly back.
Yeah, there will be riders threatened by Contador and Lopez in their general classification standings, but think of the number of riders who are off the front of the bunch. I mean, Orica Scott at this point won't contribute to the chase because Adam Yates is up there, so you won't see, I don't think, Esteban Chavez or Simon Yates or Jack Haig driving things on if they're still in this group. And of course Astana won't be riding down Miguel Angel Lopez either. So you'd look at Team Sky, obviously, and you'd look at Vincenzo Nibali's team in particular to start to try and work on the front if they start to consider this a threat, as it edges ever closer towards 30 seconds now, the advantage for Miguel Angel Lopez over the red jersey group.
There you go, they just saw the 1 kilometre to go sign at the side of the road, so he's going to carry as much of this speed as possible into this, which is and try and just almost carry the momentum, the majority up it if you can.
Adam Yates hitting this little descent and then racing towards, in the next 700 metres or so, the summit of the penultimate climb of the day, Category 1 climb, and then no respite really to speak of at all before they hit the final especial, uncategorised climb up to the 2,500 metre summit of Sierra Nevada. Romain Bardet in this chase group behind with Alberto Contador and Miguel Angel Lopez was swept up from that original attack and has joined that group, so a very powerful trio trying to hunt down Adam Yates, but they have an advantage that is, well, Yates has an advantage that continues to grow now out to over a minute, and the Team Sky-led red jersey, what remains of the peloton group, is just beginning to peg back the Contador group slightly, or at least limit their, or stop their losses to them. That's the situation as the peloton now hits this little bit of descending, and then they too will hit the final ramp up to the finish line of this penultimate climb, the Alto del Poche.
It's Team Sky now who really are in charge, and once again Moscon who is leading that charge, and now they do have a big job ahead of them, because even though they've got 3 riders, and that is a luxury for any team leader at this point, there's still a long way to go, and there's some fantastic climbers up the road.
20 kilometres to go. The climb actually tops out with 19.9k to go. So, in theory, 100 metres further on is the top of the climb. But, as you can see, the gradient just doesn't let up at all. There is no real summit here to speak of before they climb again.
And that's the thing, they barely drop off. It flattens a little bit, the change onto the big road, but then it really is, in essence, a 28-kilometre climb.
They've lost a chunk of time, this group. They got it to within about 50 seconds of Adam Yates. It's gone right back out to 1:14 now. And that means also that the red jersey group is closing in on them.
Yeah, it's interesting that. I mean, we know Adam Yates is really applying the pressure now, but I didn't realise he'd apply it this much, which goes to show he's on a fantastic day. And his plays perfectly into his hands, because Team Sky can now slow up even more. Oh yeah, look at Adam Yates going. He is looking very, very good. And there is the summit of the climb.
Yep. There it is. Over the top he goes. And you think about the next climb almost immediately. The altitude now is just short of 1,700 metres. They've got another, 800 metres of altitude to gain before their day is over today.
It's just an interesting situation now for this group. I mean, they are committed. They can't throw this in, but they have just lost a lot of time, and now they're coming back in. But I think Adam Yates really did use that descent and this little 1k climb up to the summit. He really did attack that, and you can see the difference. Sometimes when you're one rider, you can attack it more. When we saw him carry that momentum into the climb, a small group isn't necessarily going to do that. Now Team Sky, you can see the way that the group is spreading across the road. They know that they have the Miguel Angel Lopez Alberto Contador group under control, so they're relaxing a bit, and they need to as well. As I said, if Chris Froome only has 3 riders, they've got to stretch them out as long as possible, and that means pacing their effort to perfection.
Bardet, possibly hunting down King of the Mountains points, in which he is a player, takes the second place over that climb, sits up and waits for Contador and Lopez to get back with him, and those 3 will continue to work together against Adam Yates, who takes on Bottles, and he's already climbing. This is where the final climb begins. Yates has got 1 minute and 9 seconds to defend over the chase group, and 1:46 back to the red jersey. And there is the story of the climb, over 19 kilometres in length. An average gradient that doesn't frighten you too much in theory, of just 5.6%. It has one flattish section most of the time,
Thomas
around about
just
6 or 7.
Attacking over there to get some points as well. It's in classic Thomas de Gendt fashion. Now, will that draw anybody else out? Doesn't seem to be at the moment. I think everyone is now committed to the final climb.
And what remains of the race goes over the climb with Sandarame, Thomas de Gendt's teammate, just rolling over in last place. Little bit of respite, and then they too will be climbing. 18.5 kilometres though for Adam Yates left in this race.
The Vuelta a España peloton will no doubt feel that today's finish is quite high enough, and yet the race director Javier Guillen wanted to take them even higher. The mountain you can see just behind me is the 3,396 metre Pico de Valletta. The highest point in mainland Spain and the highest road in mainland Europe goes almost right to the top. Unfortunately, it also lies inside the Sierra Nevada National Park and is a protected area. It's therefore out of bounds to the Vuelta, at least for the moment.
Vincenzo Nibali on the move now, a long way out, more than, about 14 kilometres I would have thought for Vincenzo Nibali. Has just sensed that Team Sky are letting it drift just a little bit, certainly not closing the gap. It continues to grow to the Contador group, and he's gone very, very early. An audacious move in the white jersey today, Vincenzo Nibali. Tailwind affecting the race, and that would kind of favour a lone attack.
Yeah, it does. If you can get the gap, then it's massive. Of course, Chris Froome, when you're in the wheels, when it's a tailwind, you're not getting as much slipstream. So it hurts more. So that's the most important for Nibali, was to get that gap. And we know he's one of the best GC riders, and he's got a vicious jump acceleration. And he used that. Now Chris Froome is just telling Nibali what to do. Don't know whether he's telling him to leave him out there dangling or whether to shut it down. We'll know soon enough. But shutting it down on Vincenzo Nibali, who clearly is coming into his best form, is no mean feat.
And once again, no sign of distress or panic at this stage, as Chris Froome in the red leader's jersey is watching the man in second place in the general classification, who's made his point over the last few days of racing repeatedly, albeit in small measure, David, but we were commenting on it earlier before the racing even got underway today. 5 seconds here, another little cheeky 10 seconds there, beating him in a sprint every now and again to the line. Vincenzo Nibali has just been laying down little markers all the while.
Yeah, and he's opening up that gap now steadily, surely but steadily, which is very impressive, because he'll be riding his effort in two ways. First one, to distance Team Sky, put them under stress, so he's going to have to go very deep here, but then once he sees them, if it gets the gap a bit steadier, then he's got to try and just focus on bridging up to that group of Alberto Contador, and then once he's up there, then they can all work together. But the biggest challenge for him now is breaking the Sky elastic, if you like.
One effect that this is having as we think about the Contador group that's, well, about a minute further up the road, is they were holding themselves at an advantage of close to 1 minute 25. That's come down quite rapidly now, and Contador was quite safely in a virtual podium position, having overtaken the third-placed rider Wilco Kelderman, who's in the red jersey group. But the reaction to that attack from Nibali has increased the pace in the red jersey group, so you sense that that's going to be bad news, at least for the time being, for Contador and Lopez and Stephen Kruijswijk.
Yes, the bad news is the kind of first thing, but at the moment, well, the ride that's the most impressive is Adam Yates, who's off the front, so he is still holding off 1:16. Now that group of Alberto Contador and Miguel Lopez is, and now Vincenzo Nibali, they're not bringing him back yet. They are just holding it, but how long Miguel Nibali can hold that for, I don't know, and how long Vincenzo Nibali. But I mean, I presume if Vincenzo Nibali feels he can do this, it means he feels he can hold it for a long time, this pace.
David, when they get to about 8 or 9 kilometres to go on this massively long, very gradual climb, they get over 2,000 metres. Now, we keep talking about how Vincenzo Nibali, that plays to his strengths. He's really good at it. He's adapted physically to those sort of circumstances. I mean, all of these riders are. They train at altitude repeatedly. But what can you describe, can you put into words the effect that altitude has when you get over 2,000 metres?
It's a little bit by being very gradually suffocated. It's every rider reacts differently to it, but these GC riders, these top climbers, they are trained for it. I mean, they spend a lot of time. A lot of these riders will be familiar with Sierra Nevada. They'll know this ride very well. It's either here or Tenerife or in Libano in the Italian Dolomites. There is the selection, but there's not many places in Europe, but this is one of the places. But for many of these riders, even them at their best, over 2,000 meters, it just feels like you're breathing less and less air. It's almost like trying to do an effort through a straw. And you'll see often that the way people blow up is just a very slow deceleration. You just see people pulling out with the line out. All of a sudden, the lack of oxygen starts to accumulate, the lactic acid, and then all of a sudden, they know they have to pull back the effort. And that all of a sudden happens, and you see your heart rate going up, the power dropping, as your body's trying to compensate for the fact there's less air, then all of a sudden you can't do it anymore.
One rider who we've forgotten about is Group 3 on the road. That's Thomas de Gendt, who might be an interesting kind of side player in this GC contest that's emerging here, as it looks like Vincenzo Nibali is being brought back by Team Sky and Mikel Nieve now. He's Group 4 on the road, and they've taken his graphic off to indicate that he's been caught, and that's confirmation that that attack was neutralised by one man and one man alone, and he's still there on the front. Mikel Nieve brings back Vincenzo Nibali.
But it does tire them out. So this is what he's done before. This is what you have to do. And I think probably have a few words with Aru, see if Aru's going to go. But it's they need to wear down Team Sky. By doing that attack, Moscon was blown out. Now, they've just had, Mikel Nieve's just had to do a massive effort to control that and bring him back. So that probably means Mikel Nieve doesn't have much more in him.
OK, Adam Yates on his own on the front. 1 minute 12 to the Alberto Contador group, and Thomas de Gendt is somewhere in between this group and the red jersey group that now does contain Vincenzo Nibali again. They're 2 minutes and 5 seconds down on Adam Yates. Everything very delicately balanced with just about 10k to go for Adam Yates, trying to hunt down his first ever Grand Tour stage victory. Now Adam Yates has, I say, just 8 kilometres, and I say just 8 kilometres with a heavy dose of irony, because now we're hitting the point where we are over 2,000 metres of altitude. He's got 1 minute and 3 seconds, so just signs just signs that Miguel Angel Lopez in particular, because he is doing most of the work on the front of the Contador group, is beginning to chip away at Adam Yates' lead. Mikel Nieve still sets the pace in the red jersey group, with Vincenzo Nibali back in the fold after launching an audacious long-range attack. They are just holding their disadvantage to the Froome group, the Contador group, at around about 50 seconds.
Alberto Contador choosing the big ring mainly, which is you see everyone else in the small ring, but he's decided just to stay in the big ring, although it's all the way to the left. So is Kruijswijk. So that goes to show the speed that they can climb up Sierra Nevada. So actually it's all of them apart from Miguel Angel Lopez, who's in the small ring. They're all riding the big ring here.
So Contador is the big gainer at the moment in the general classification virtual standings. He has overtaken Esteban Chavez, and he's not far off the time of Ilnur Zakarin, who started the day in 4th place in the general classification. Zakarin buried into the fold here, like all the other favourites are. And that, if I'm not mistaken, is Thomas de Gent. So we haven't seen him for a while, so he's far from closing to the Contador group. He's actually been caught. Thomas de Gent, we understood, was just about to catch Contador, but there he is. So now there are 3 distinct groups in the race, remaining in the race. One man on the front. Then comes a quartet of riders, some of the best climbers in the world, and then this group, Chris Froome and Team Sky, are dominating at the front at the moment.
Well, Thomas de Gent could very well have made it quite close to the back of that group and then simply exploded, because when you do explode in a climb like this after a day that's been as hard as it has been, it can all fall to pieces very quickly, and that could still happen to Adam Yates. We see he's slowing down. Look, and that's happening. This is above 2,000 meters now, so things are changing. If he has been in the red, he can't recover from here on in. Kruijswijk now is going, and this is what I was saying before about the effect of altitude. You just see people gaps just opening up, so it's more of an attrition, a case of attrition, and it's more not so much people moving off the front of the race as people getting dropped out the back.
Almost thought Miguel Angel Lopez had attacked there. Couldn't see him. He was completely smothered and dwarfed by Alberto Contador standing up on his pedals behind him. But those 3 now have dropped Steven Kruijswijk and are 52 seconds back on Adam Yates. 40 seconds in front of the Froome group.
Bardet now suffering as well. You can see Angel Lopez is just setting a very high pace. He knows they're coming back, that group behind. So he can't just hang about now and wait and ride at the pace of the others. I think he's just going to do his own race essentially and let the others just sit on his wheel and hopefully blow them out one by one.
Well, you're watching something pretty rare in Grand Tour stage racing. Any race at all on the calendar, very, very seldom do they go to this kind of altitude. 2,500 meters is pretty close to the ceiling of the racing world. It's only the Col de la Bonnette, which is raced, and that's 2,800 meters and occasionally features on the Tour de France. As Miguel Angel Lopez attacks again, just increases the pace. Romain Bardet scoots past Alberto Contador, who's just showing a little bit of sign of weakness there, and those 2 are disappearing in front of him.
Yeah, and this is the altitude effect. You can see Miguel Angel Lopez, he barely has to do a big attack. He was just winding up the effort more and more and just putting them deeper and deeper into the red. And that's no doubt what's going to happen as well behind in the red jersey group.
Well, he's gone, hasn't he? Just disappeared as the motorbike accelerates away from Bardet and Contador. And there he is, Superman, flying up this mountain.
Oh, he's just going to eat into that time gap. Now, I mean, look at the speed he's going at. So, yeah.
It's not great news for Adam Yates, this, I don't think.
No, it isn't. Not in the slightest. But at the same time, if Adam Yates can hang on and time it to perfection where he gets on the wheel of Miguel Angel Lopez at the right moment where it's not too steep, then hopefully he can hold on. He knows he's coming now.
Still Mikel Nieve works on the front. Wout Poels ready to take over for Chris Froome. Zakarin is there, Chavez is there, the other Colombian. See how he goes in the final. Will he be able to launch any kind of attack if he knows that Adam Yates has been caught past? What will Chavez's instructions be? What will he be able to do? Just such a nasty climb, this, with its relatively gradual gradient, its horrible altitude, and the fact that the road is so wide and so exposed and that you can see everybody on the road.
Yeah, there is nowhere to hide, and because there are none of the switchbacks or corners or those small... Oh, and here we go. Look at the speed he's coming up on him now. So Adam Yates, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do anything about this.
What's going to happen when these 2 get together? Is he just going to rip past him? Superman is right on the wheel of Adam Yates now. So Yates' attack was brilliant while it lasted, but it's over. And Miguel Angel Lopez goes to the front. Now, how long can Yates live with the Colombian on this climb?
So there you go, he did know he was coming, so he did perhaps just rest up a little bit, just allow himself a little bit of wriggle room, if you like, because he was already at threshold effort. When Miguel Angel Lopez got to him, he wouldn't have stood a chance. So he's allowed himself to drop off the effort a bit, get a bit of oxygen in him, and be prepared for this very thing that's happening to him now.
Well, let's not forget just how deep Miguel Angel Lopez, for all his prodigious talent, has had to dig in order to get across to Yates. That won't have been at the cost of nothing either. So maybe those two will just work together and stay together for a little while, like Contador and Bardet do. They know, though, that the red jersey group is going to catch them pretty soon, and Yates just shakes his head, because that is over. He could stay on his wheel for, what, 100 metres? Maybe not as much as that. He's over. He's done. He'll have to wait for another day, Adam Yates, to score that longed-for victory on a Grand Tour. But this man has already been there and done that, the 23-year-old Colombian, and now he has the sole race lead, and he's got a minute over Chris Froome's red jersey and the rest of the favourites. Can he hold on? 3.7 kilometres to go as Bardet and Contador edge ever closer to being caught by Chris Froome. So it's good while it lasted for Adam Yates, but I think if he has to lose out to a rider of that kind of talent, he would have no complaints, because it really is some ride.
But I mean, we also saw there, that was the prime example of what happens to your altitude when you go that deep into the red. He tried as hard as he could to stay on the wheel, but really push him hard.
All right, Contador and Bardet have been caught. Wout Poels glances across, and there is the red jersey of Chris Froome, neutralising that expected attack from Alberto Contador. That group comes together, and they've got about 4 kilometres remaining. 3.2k to go for Miguel Angel Lopez, who is out of sight now. Adam Yates virtually pulled the handbrake on and came to a halt when he was dropped by Miguel Angel Lopez. All the other riders in between this man and the group of favourites have been caught. So it's very, very simple after all that. It's Wout Poels and Chris Froome against the man at the front of the race. Very, very simple. Can he hold them off? 58 seconds.
Wout Poels looking very strong. Mika Nievi did an incredible job there, but Wout Poels, it looks like he's setting up something, I think, for Chris Froome, because he is going quite deep there. 3Ks is a long way to go at this altitude after this length of a climb. Let's not forget, it's not just been the 19 kilometres of the final slopes of Sierra Nevada. There were the 8-9Ks before that as well, so it does total up to nearly 28 kilometres of climbing.
57 seconds. And remember, bonus seconds will definitely be a factor here, because whether he hangs on to take this win, Miguel Angel Lopez, there will be a race for second place and a potential 6-second time bonus and 4 seconds for third.
You can see this is sort of slow because it isn't very steep. Even when they accelerate, it doesn't make big differences. There aren't big gaps. It's going to be a case of attrition and one big move. So if Chris Froome is going to do it, as usual, we know how he does this. He waits as late as possible, often lets somebody else go first and then counters. So if he is, although at the same time he'll be perfectly happy with the time trial in 2 days after the rest day tomorrow, at the moment is his Vuelta to lose. So there's no point in him really to attack unless he really is 100% sure that his opponents are weakened.
If he can come out of this climb with still 55 seconds or thereabouts intact over Vincenzo Nibali, I think Chris Froome will be delighted with his trip through Andalusia, because this was a potentially very dangerous day for him, especially given the fact that he's still nursing those bruises from the fall 2 days ago. Yes, he would have liked a stage win, but with each pedal stroke here from Miguel Angel Lopez, that's looking less and less likely. 2.4k to go, still the best part of a minute for the Colombian. I wonder what Wout Poels' finish line is, as far as he can go.
Yeah, I mean, he'll have to time it once again to perfection, but at the moment, I think they'll be happy for him just to control this. But at one point, I'm sure we'll just see Wout Poels pull off, or if the group behind, if the riders behind find that Wout Poels is slowing down, then that would be their moment to go, because then they'll realise if Chris Froome isn't reacting off that, then perhaps he's just quite happy. Now, they may as well not just play into Chris Froome's hands. Nibali there poised, just sitting right behind Chris Froome, waiting to see, trying to gauge how strong Wout Poels is, because he doesn't want to attack and then just get reeled back in again. So he wants to wait until Wout Poels is at his absolute weakest to attack, to force Chris Froome himself to come after him.
Plenty of crowds have made their way up to the top of this climb, and Adam Yates has now been passed by the red jersey group, and just passes a bottle over to Esteban Chavez.
No, he shook his head, Esteban Chavez, so he was going to offer that.
Yep.
Miguel Angel Lopez is simply timing this to perfection. He looks so strong still, and we're growing accustomed to seeing that he does have a very solid style on the bike. Not really much like a climber. He almost looks like a time trial specialist or a bit like a smaller classics rider. He's very solid, doesn't actually get out of the saddle that much. He looks like a very robust bike rider.
Bear in mind everything he's been through this year with that terrible accident. So back in the spring, a big injury when he was out training in Colombia in his home province of Boyacá, when a car pulled out, made him fall off his bike, and he broke his tibia. And that is not an injury you come back from lightly. But he did return to racing, and he took a brilliant Queen stage at the Vuelta a Burgos before the Vuelta, and he's taken his first Grand Tour stage on the Vuelta as well. Well, his advantage is growing, and I think he can start to think about the celebration, because 1.3k to go for Miguel Angel Lopez. He's not going to be caught. There's a move, though, from Ilnur Zakarin, the first of the big leaders, or the next of the big leaders, to attack. Who's going stronger as this Vuelta continues as well, Ilnur Zakarin.
So that was well, Paul's kept just looking behind to find out what Chris Froome wants him to do, because in that noise you can't hear on the radio. So if Chris Froome, as is his nature, to always speak on the radio, when the crowd's that close to you, you can't really hear. So you'd had to check around to see what Chris Froome wanted him to do, and clearly Chris Froome was quite happy to let him go.
Yeah, the rider who is really being put into difficulties by that attack from Ilnur Zakarin, and it's a good attack too, is Wilco Kelderman, who started the day in 3rd place. Ilnur Zakarin was in 4th, just 8 seconds down on Wilco Kelderman. So don't forget the time bonus here. If Zakarin were to finish with a 2-second advantage over Kelderman and take 2nd place, then they would be level on time, and Zakarin, I think, would be the favourite to be in the podium position. Kelderman's done really well, actually, to climb to this point in Sierra Nevada without any support from Barguil, who was sent home by his team, and now without the support of Sam Oman, who has abandoned the race with sickness as Contador just drops off the back. He's beginning to look laboured, and he's paying for that attack.
Yeah, but once again, at least he tried. He did bring that out, and Miguel Angel Lopez wouldn't be in, well, he probably would be Miguel Angel Lopez, who could have gone anywhere, I think. But he has helped to massively set that up, and he animated the stage like he always does.
Zakarin is climbing onto the podium here, no doubt about that. Will he get across to Miguel Angel Lopez? Well, that's much more in doubt, because this man is riding in the final kilometre now. Just about 700 metres for him to go, and 45 seconds to hold off Ilnur Zakarin and the rest of them. Still no move from Chris Froome, or no sign of a repeated move from Vincenzo Nibali.
It'd be interesting that now that Zakarin's there, that provides a perfect springboard, if you like, for Vincenzo Nibali. If he he can just sprint, just go as hard as he can, knowing that if he can get Zakarin's wheel, he'll get a rest. So that serves as a perfect target for Nibali if he does choose to launch a counter-attack.
Zakarin now within about 900 metres of the finish line, through the arch and out of sight round the corner, that left-hander. And Contador is almost beginning to lose sight of the red jersey group, as well, as they now go round that same just sweeping left-hander, this long straight run into the finish line. And Fabio Aru is dropping away with Pello Bilbao, and Louis Meink has just caught the wrong side of that little split as Fabio Aru lost the wheels. Another good ride from Michael Woods from Canadel Drapac. Esteban Chavez, Vincenzo Nibali, Wilco Kelderman, Chris Froome and Wout Poels were the remaining riders in that little selection.
Well, Paul's doing an incredible job, down to the best climbers and GC riders in the race, and Chris Froome still has one domestique with him, and they've found 4 riders, but with Meintjes getting on, then that puts him back to about 5 or 6 riders in that very front, what's left of the peloton.
Well, here we are. We've seen this before, and we're going to see it again many, many times over, I think. Colombia has another superstar, and he has confirmed this over the opening 2 weeks of racing, and now he does it at high altitude as well on Sierra Nevada. One of the big showpiece finales belongs to Miguel Angel Lopez. 150 metres for him to go now. I'm sure he'll be seeing Colombian flags in the crowd, the big crowd that are leaning over the barriers to take a picture, a selfie even, with this man, because, make no doubt about it, Miguel Angel Lopez has announced his presence in double style now on this Vuelta as he takes stage win number 2 for Colombia and Astana. Miguel Angel Lopez, Superman, does it again atop the Sierra Nevada, and he points to the sky. 2.5 kilometres in the air. What a ride that was, and the clock is ticking over now. He will be rising up the GC standings. That is another subplot to be considered with all the climbing still to come on the Vuelta. And Ilnur Zakarin now with that speculative little attack has got away, and Zakarin is riding himself onto a podium position. Some 30 seconds down, or if not more, on Miguel Angel Lopez, so his position on the GC isn't threatened by the Colombian just yet. But can he climb past Wilco Kelderman? He only needs to take 2 seconds over the line because he picks up 6 bonus seconds, and he's done it. Ilnur Zakarin now will climb past Wilco Kelderman, who sprints for the line, and a good effort, but he's going to pull up just a few seconds short of Zakarin as they all roll over the line. There's the red jersey, and Nibali has been, well, he's lost out this time, and there's a little gap has opened between Chris Froome and Vincenzo Nibali. Alberto Contador now coming round the finishing line, climbing out of the saddle with pain rather than exhilaration, but he has lit up this race along with Romain Bardet. Those two riders crossed the line around about 1.5 minutes down on Miguel Angel Lopez. 3 names to remember, 2 stage wins on the Vuelta to savour.
And this one even more impressive than the first. Lopez had 36 seconds over Ilnur Zakarin, and Zakarin had 9 over Wilco Kelderman, who chased him to the line trying to save his 3rd place overall. Esteban Chaves and Chris Froome finished together 47 seconds behind Lopez and just ahead of Michael Woods and Vincenzo Nibali. Fabio Aru lost a minute 2, plus the official team leadership of Astana surely now to Lopez. Bardet and Contador came in just under a minute and a half down after their work out front. Adam Yates had his brother for company over the last few hard kilometres after he was caught and finished 4.5 minutes down.
Adam, after a great ride like that, but a disappointing result, can you feel disappointed?
Oh, I tried my best, so can't really be disappointed with that. Pretty tired now, but we have a rest day tomorrow, so rest up and try again in a few days. So yeah, that's all there is to it.
And when Lopez came up to you, it was like a ticking time bomb in your ear. You knew he was coming, you knew he was going to be fast, and you gave it one last push.
I slowed down a little bit because I knew when he came past me, he was going to come past me with speed. But to be honest, I was pedaling squares for the last maybe 6k. And yeah, that's all there is to it. I mean, like I said before, I tried my best. Maybe it was a little bit early. I don't know how many k's it was to go when I attacked, but yeah, we give it a shot, and it didn't work out today, but in the future it's going to work out, and I can get that stage victory.
Esteban, when Adam attacked on the penultimate climb, we thought you were setting up a classic Orica move that you were going to bridge across to him. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, and it's funny you say the classic Orica move, because yeah, he's like this. We have 2 options, so go for the stage with Adam, or Chaves attack and Adam help him, you know. So at the final, Miguel Angel is unbelievable. Congratulations to him. Adam as well. Adam is super strong guy. And in the final, I think we are 4th in GC. So we start 5th today, so this is good.
Yeah, really good. I felt today again really good, and was a fast day from the beginning on, and yeah, Sky rode again a really hard tempo, and yeah, for me it was only try to follow. In the end, I had still a good sprint, so maybe yeah, I could go earlier, but I was also on the limit.
Well, he has yet to finish a Grand Tour in his short career, Miguel Angel Lopez, but the question now is how high up he might finish this one.
¿Cuántos remordimientos por el tiempo perdido en la primera parte de la Vuelta?
Bueno, ningún remordimiento. Yo pienso que he empezado la Vuelta corto un poco, pero normal en mí porque solo tenía 15 días, 18 días de competencia. Mis fracturas, mis lesiones que he tenido no me dejaban pues participar más, y bueno, poco a poco he cogido el ritmo en el cual tengo ahora, y nada, ahora conservarlo y espero ir con las piernas hasta Madrid.
No points for the mountains leader today. Davide Villela takes a lead of 8 into the second rest day, with Chris Froome up to 3rd behind Miguel Angel Lopez. And Froome picked up 12 green jersey points to take the lead in that competition. His lead overall is now back over a minute, Vincenzo Nibali having lost the 4 seconds he gained yesterday, plus a couple more. Ilnur Zakarin's late attack gives him the 3rd spot on the podium as things stand, by 3 seconds from Wilco Kelderman. Miguel Angel Lopez is up to 6th at 2 minutes 51, behind his fellow Colombian Esteban Chaves, but ahead of his teammate Fabio Aru. Michael Woods and Alberto Contador, who swapped places yesterday, swapped back again to 8th and 9th, Wout Poels has ridden himself into the top 10 as a byproduct of doing a brilliant job for Chris Froome. David de la Cruz is the man who makes way for him. He's now 11th. Steven Kruijswijk and Romain Bardet both improved their placings overall slightly after their day out in the break. And Mikel Nieve, who did so much of the work to bring back the break for Sky, moves into the top 20. He's 15th. So great work by Sky, meaning less stress for their team leader, who heads into the second rest day still well on course for his Tour Vuelta double.
You do always pay tribute to your teammates, but this was the kind of climb where they were absolutely vital, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, such a long climb, such a lot of climbing, over 2,500 meters of altitude. It was crucial to have numbers in the final today, and it really paid off having the guys there to look after me.
And just one question on the time trial after the rest day, Chris. If you didn't take more than a minute off Nibali, you'd be disappointed, wouldn't you?
As it stands, I'm happy to keep things as they are, as long as I'm clear of everyone else and still got the leader's jersey on my shoulders. I'm happy. Just got to take it one day at a time at the moment, and keep focused on Madrid.